It's Wednesday, March 19th. It is 5:32 p.m. Board of Finance Special Session is now in order. Discuss and take action to approve the following resolution recommending supplemental appropriation to renovate the Academy School, the Community Center, and municipal building approved by the Board of Selectmen on March 3rd, 2025. I'm going to read this and then ask for the form of a motion. So resolution recommending supplemental appropriation of $8,100,000 to renovate the Academy School, the Community Center, and the municipal building. Whereas the referendum held on February 15, 2022, the voters of the town of Madison approved the appropriation and bond authorization of $15,900,000 to renovate the Academy School and the Community Center and municipal building. The project, in quotes, and whereas bids for the project came back more expensive than initially estimated, and the Board of Finance is recommended that the voters of the town amend the original resolution authorizing the project to increase the total appropriation from $50,900,000 to $24 million. Be it resolved that the Board of Finance recommends that the town amend the original resolution authorizing the project, authorizing a supplemental appropriation of $8,100,000 for the project. The total appropriation for the project shall be increased to $24 million. Town funds shall not be used to finance all or any portion of the supplemental appropriation of the $8,100,000, except when facilitating reimbursement terms of an already approved grant agreement. The town may only use federal grants, state grants, or private donations to finance the supplemental appropriation of $8,100,000. The supplemental appropriation of $8,100,000 may include any state or federal grants received by the town since February 15, 2022. Therefore, further resolved that the Board of Finance recommends that the town appropriate $24 million for the project and authorize issues of bonds or notes of the town in an amount not to exceed $15,900,000 in finance appropriation, or so much as may be necessary after deducting grants to receive for the project of the excess of $8,100,000. Can I get that in the form of a motion, please? Second. Motion made by Katie, second by Matt. Jude, discussion. Go left or right. Bob, you here? I'm going to start.
Starting with Bob.
Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Bob, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
We're in discussion. I don't know if there's anything you want to say, or we're just going to go down left or right.
I'm all set. I heard the proclamation. I read it in advance as well.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I just want to find out if we find that the bids are higher, what's the plan to supplement this if we do need it?
Good question. If it comes in more than the 24 million, John?
Yeah.
I know Peggy's here. Peg, did you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, there's a point of, how high is this going to keep going? I think the board would then just have to make a decision, perhaps not move forward. I mean, I think that this is what we feel is the top end of what we can do on this. We have the grants to fund it, and the plan is to go out to bid, and hopefully we will get something within the range of the project budget. And that's what we would do.
And kind of as a related question, if we're halfway through the project, we've already started, and we find there's a change order needed, is there a plan to use CIP or some other means of doing that, or?
Well, so you got to explain that change orders could happen that still be within the 24 million, or
Right.
over and above, John. I'm just trying to understand.
Over and above.
I mean, over and above, they'd have to come back for both boards.
Yeah.
Correct, Peg? If you went above
Yeah,
it-
and once again, I mean, the budget is the budget, so there would have to be perhaps other decisions made within the budget. Value engineering, things like that, that would have to be adjusted, because it's pretty clear that we can't use any town funds. That's why it's written very clearly in the resolution.
I don't have any more questions. I have comment, but if others want to ask questions.
I'll come back.
Yeah.
Jude?
I don't have questions, I have comments as well.
Well, listen, why don't
Want
we
me to
do the
go through
comment?
comments? Okay. I just want to say that this has been a very obviously frustrating project for everybody in town, and especially those who've worked so hard on it. To be looking at this point for an additional $8.1 million is, that's a significant change from what we originally thought was going to be the price of this project. However, I strongly believe that the voters of the town voted that they wanted to spend, or that they authorized the spending of up to $15,900,000, that they were approving sending out for bonds for the amount of money, that they knew that although we hoped we might get some grant money, none of that was ever guaranteed. And so that this might be fully funded by the taxpayers to the tune of 15.9. I think because of that vote, we have a duty to go forward with going back to the public and saying, we can still do this for the town people spending 15.9 million. We will have to use the grant money to fund the additional of it. Do you authorize to do it? I think it's very important that we go back to the townspeople and ask them if they want to do it that way or not.
Thank you. Katie?
My question is more in terms of scope. And Peggy, I don't know if this, so it doesn't talk about scope in this resolution, but I know by watching the building committee meetings that they've made some adjustments to different parts of the building. They talked at one point about, doing just bare bones renovation, and things like that. Do you, from the Board of Selectmen's point of view, have an idea of what you would like this building to look like for?
So this budget supports the plan that went to bid at the end of last year. So the design plans are finalized, the amenities are confirmed, and the public presentation that we'll be giving starting next week, so voters will understand what exactly is in the building. It's pretty much close to what was presented back in 2022. There's definitely some changes, tweaks and modifications, but it has all the amenities. This, not all the amenities, but it has a number of the things that the community wanted in it. It also has pretty much the same usage by town staff, by town departments, I should say. Youth and Family Services is still going to be using about the same amount of square footage, and so is Beach and Rec. So really, this is kind of what it's going to cost to deliver what everybody wanted in 2022. And so, and that'll be laid out very clearly. We're going to have a visual walkthrough of what the building will look like. We'll have floor plans. Obviously, once it moves forward, there might need to be material changes for, decorative things or certain things that have to get tweaked and changes as the bid packages go forward. But in terms of like the layout of the building and all that, and the HVAC and the core infrastructure, that's all settled.
Thank you. That's helpful. I hope at some point you can make or the building committee can make a presentation to us to see all of those things as well. But in terms of what we have for business today, I just want to echo, what Jude said. I've been public about, I did not support this in the referendum in 22. However, it was pretty clearly decided by those that took the time to vote that this was something they wanted. I also feel very strongly that this is a bookend of our town, and that building, gorgeous building, sitting there and not being acknowledged for as long as it has been is a shame. And so I do support allowing the voters to come back with this new information and have better clarity and be able to make the decision. It's all of our town. So I think the more people that can weigh in, the better.
Thanks, Katie. John?
Oh, thank you. I think I would sum up my feelings by saying that I agree with the ends of this project, but I don't agree with the means. So I mean by that I think having more and improved office space for Beach and Rec and for Youth and Family Services is an admirable goal. I think having a public space like a theater would be wonderful in town. but I don't agree with the means because I'm concerned about the price, the increases. I just think it's the wrong place at the wrong time and at the wrong price. And so I'd oppose it for that reason. And I'll also, to Katie's point, she opposed it originally. I was for it originally in 2022, but
Balance each other.
yeah. I believe there's good arguments on both sides, but I think that we can step back and achieve these goals with different means.
Matt?
Actually, I think John had comments. Still, you had comments.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think, I have concerns about this whole project, and I think there was an understanding when it went to original referendum that any grant funds would be used to reduce it. I think that was very clear. And I'm just kind of a bottom line kind of guy. And from what I see, this is going from an $8 million project to a $16 million project as far as cost to the town. People said it's been a 50% increase. I see it as a 100% increase. And I'm just concerned we're going to get into this and the building's been, to me, shuttered too long. It's in a condition that I have concerns that it's going to cost us more once we're into it. And, we're going to be talking about our town budget and balancing that. And I just see if that debt figure keeps going up, it's really going to affect other types of operating things that we need for the town. It's going to affect the school. No matter, at the end of the day, there's one pot of money. And this is going to be more money going towards debt. And I just can't support that project for that reason. And I would urge my fellow board members to consider what we're going to be doing later, trying to balance the budget. And this is going to be, I'm concerned it'll be more than a $24 million project.
Thank you, John.
I share your concern, John.
Katie wanted to comment.
But I think having worked with the school facilities for as long as I did, something's got to happen with that building. You can't just leave it there.
I agree.
So something's gonna, right? So for me, that's why I support letting the voters decide. Because it's gonna cost the town something at some point, and we will lose the benefit of any grant money.
Matt?
All right, I have 3 thoughts.
Fire away.
The first is, this is different than 2022 because the scope and price have changed, right? And watching now being on the academy, on the ad hoc committee, I can see the value engineering that has brought us to here. So not a huge change, but it's been a change. So it is different. Number 2, I do not see 24 million being the ceiling of this project. I firmly believe that it's going to be more than that. And we even heard that we don't know until we open it up what's going to happen, right? And so what's going to happen, I think John Rasmus was saying too, what's going to happen once we get into the project and this goes on. I think that happened with Strong Field, right? We expected all this outside money coming and it didn't. And so the town was saddled with it. Not the full amount as expected. The third thing is we can't just look at this project. We have to look at everything coming down. We've got 89 million in bonding for the school renewal plan. We've got the 15.9 bonding for this. And in a couple of years, we're going to have bonding for surf club. This is exactly why it's difficult for our seniors to stay in Madison, for new families to come in. And by voting yes to this, we're making it difficult for affordable housing for all of those people, right? It's just, as you said, it's not the right time. We've got a lot of bonding that's increasing. So I cannot support this increase.
Thanks, Matt. Obviously, I'm going to say a few words. So I, too, from the 15.9 that it was to the 24 million, and some of those estimates were off by a wide margin. I don't disagree with anything my colleague said here. I struggle with having a vacant building. I've been inside that building. I was inside that building 2018, 2019, I believe. Vacant buildings are not an attraction or a problem. Become more and more of a problem while they're there. I know this has been ongoing. I think it's something that Peg, I believe, inherited this, I believe, and then it went out and the public approved it. And I deal with this in a different way. There's never the perfect time. There really isn't. You can always come up with a reason not to do something. and to me, it's to give this back to the voters. If they want to do it, you know, hopefully it'll be done right and done within the 24 million. I don't, you know, necessarily disagree with John there either. And it'll be attraction to our downtown. If I was a business owner downtown, I'd be hoping it happens and I'd be fully supportive. So I am going to support this to go back to the voters and see if they want to do, with the caveat, obviously, we're not going to spend any more of our money other than the money that's already appropriate. But I did have a question for Matt. Matt still here?
Yep.
Matt, if this doesn't go forward, I know we already received some bonds, and what happens there?
Yeah, so if you, oh boy. Yeah, back, sorry about that. If this fails and you don't have enough money to finish the project, you can't scale it down, you can't scale it back. What I've told the Board of Selectmen at the prior meeting was you would probably use it to pay down existing debt service that you have. Because at the end of the day, what the IRS is going to want to make sure is that we're not just sitting on bond proceeds, earning interest and not spending them. Okay. So there's two things that they'd allow you to do by and large, right? One is just to pay off existing debt service, which you would just use probably to pay off a couple of years of debt service that you have, or you could transfer to other capital projects. We'd have to think, working with the town attorney, what that authorization would look like. But those would probably be the two outcomes you would have with whatever was left sitting in the account that Stacy has for this project.
And then if any of the grant money, Peg, would have to go back, correct?
Yeah, I would just like to comment that the Board of Selectmen also looked at, if this fails, what can you deliver for $15.9 million? And I think the board has determined that it cannot deliver a community center or really a functioning building for $15.9 million. So the likelihood of us using the funding to do something else with the building, I mean, I know there's a lot of great ideas out there in the community about all these different things you can do with this building, but the reality is they've all been investigated, and this was the one that made it across the finish line. And now 15.9 million just doesn't really get you a functioning space. So really the choices are more likely going to be demolition of the building. That doesn't mean that decision has been made, but we will have to go through that exercise to see, and that will cost several $1,000,000. So we will have to have some conversations about, can we use bond funds to fund demolition? I'm not sure. We haven't had those conversations yet. Or, so there are things that we can explore, but I don't want people to think that by voting no, we'll stick within our $15.9 million budget, because it's just no feasible way to do it. So this is really, if you want the community center, this is the budget that needs to be there to do it. The difference now is these were based on actual bids that came in, right? So I think we all have a lot more confidence that this is an appropriate budget. Is this going to cost more than that? Hey, we're in an uncertain world. We have every time we open up the newspaper, turn on the TV, there's some tariff war going on or other things happening that's disruptive to what could impact the construction market. So sure, I can't guarantee anything, but I can say that at least the $24 million budget was based on real world bids by professional contractors, not estimated by advisors this time, whereas that was not the case back in 2022. I would also like just to comment, because Matt made a comment about that somehow the scope has changed on this project. It has not changed. It is pretty much the exact same proposal that was presented in 2022. I sat here going through the presentations that were given at the public information session back in 2022. I'm updating those. There's not a lot that's different. There really isn't. There's certainly been some modifications, just like all building projects go through. There's been no extensive mission creep. I know there was a lot of discussion that the building committee went through, because they were trying to meet the priorities that were laid out by the Academy Advisory Committee. The Academy Advisory Committee was a volunteer group that we put together to say, what does the community want from this building? And let's try to be smart about it when they're going through the construction process to make sure that we're meeting all those needs. But clearly we couldn't meet all those needs because there just were too many limitations. So they tried to prioritize changes that they were making and design changes they were making to kind of fit in with what the community wanted from the Academy Design Committee. Sorry, the Academy Advisory Committee. So I do feel that this is very similar to what was presented in 2022, what we're offering now. You know, this project originated in 2018. The community center came out of a committee that was put together in 2018, and then they did a public poll, and then they went to the Board of Selectmen in 2019 with a proposed budget. When I was elected, I was asked to take that exact project to referendum. I thought about other ideas, to be honest. I wanted to create more revenue in the building by having long-term leases with arts organizations and things like that. But it was clear from what the public wanted is to a vote on the project that went to the poll and that the building committee had recommended to the Board of Selectmen. So we were going to do that in 2020, if you recall, along with the school plan, and then COVID hit. And so then everything got paused. So then a year and a half later, people felt like, okay, now we can start addressing some of these issues again. And then we just updated the budget that had been prepared in 2018 for what was normalized inflation. And we added a few, I think the geothermal system was added. The Board of Selectmen had wanted that. But there was not any further analysis done. There was not any engineering investigation or anything. It was all based on the 2018 recommendations that had come out for the project. And so then we went out, obviously, to the referendum. It got passed, you know, and then a lot happened since 2022. And unfortunately, you're right. The building has been sitting a long time, and it's just that's up the cost to renovate it. So we've had to deal with the deterioration, and they found that things they maybe 6 or 7 years ago they could have repurposed, they can't repurpose anymore. It's just, you know, things have just deteriorated too much. So that's escalated it. And then we've obviously seen what's happened to the construction market. I mean, prices have doubled to do any kind of construction. You can't build anything for like less than a commercial, $800 a square foot. So, you know, we're just in a very different environment. So, so I think the Board of Selectmen feels that we have a new budget. It's the same project. If people still want this, go out and vote yes, because this is the only way that we will be able to deliver a community center. And then if it fails, then the town will really have to seriously take a hard look about demoing the building. But we'll spend a little bit of time investigating other choices as well. Because obviously, and I think our board feels, at least we haven't, you know, made a final decision on this, but I personally would not tear this building down without, you know, a public vote on it. So just because it has such a long history and a lot of passion behind it in the community. So, you know, I know this is a tough one, you know, and I just ask that let the public make that decision. And that's all you're really being asked to do, is to allow the public to make that decision.
Have you met? Oh, sorry. I was gonna ask if they knew if there were any deed restrictions on the building or for, you know, historic preservation. Is there anything in there? For the horse, but.
My understanding is there had been extensive discussion about this years ago, you know, and that the repurposing for a community center would not be an issue. Tearing down the building, I don't know. We'd have to go back and talk about that and how we use the property, because it was really the original land that was deeded to the town for educational purposes. That first building was, I think, torn down or moved or something, and then this was built. So we would have to investigate that before we would take action to demolish or sell or do something else.
Yeah, I think it's something we should have regardless.
Yeah, I certainly respect that 2022, the referendum, the people that came to vote voted for this. But Madison's a different place. It's been 3 years. So it's been longer than that since, you know, the community center, that school was identified for a community center. And we were not able to achieve the referendum, the 15.9, right? And so in my mind, the project has already failed, right? So we have to go back with this, looking at it a different way, the 15.9 plus the 8+ mil on top of that. Again, we have to keep in mind that we're about to revitalize the surf club. We're gonna have 2 schools going offline with space. And we are just going to overtax those families that are struggling for this concept. And it just,
But then I don't know.
it's just, but do they, I don't know if they, hopefully they'll understand, but yeah.
We're not gonna go back and forth anyway, but it's okay, any other.
Yeah, just a concluding comment, and I, it was brought up about the surf club. I think that will be a time, we talk about, or we've been told that there's not enough space in town, but I see space at the library, there could be space at the senior center if we decided to go that route. But if we find we do need more space, we are going to have that big project coming up in a few years. And my guess is it'll be 2 or 3 years down the line, I would think. So I think that's just one more thing to consider. And I too don't want to make it appear that we're taking it away from the voters. I think we have to take a step back and say, would the decision makers back when this originally went to referendum put this forward for $24 million? And I think the answer is no. So I kind of have to take that to heart too. So yeah, I don't want to make it appear that we're taking it away from the voters. We're looking at a project that I think all the decision makers would have said no before. So I have to put myself in that seat. So I just want that to be.
I want to be clear. However you vote is based on how you feel, what you think.
Yeah.
Right? It's simple as that. I get that. There's no issue there. You're raising your hand.
Yeah, can I just ask for clarity from Stacy? And I just don't want to perpetuate misinformation. We're doing a study on a surf club in year 5 of CIP.
There's currently some funds available, but yes, in year 5, I'm looking at
Okay, yeah, I was
Additional
just trying to
funds.
flip to it too, but,
it is sooner.
so 5 years they will study and start surveying that. I just want to be clear about.
Well, they are starting a planning process for the surf club now. Yes. That's a master planning process to look at. They're going to be issuing an RFP for services to start looking at the whole facility. That money was funded years ago, right, Stacy?
Yeah.
So I think the money you're seeing is if there were actually a project to be funded.
Additional design money.
Yeah, design work. So this is like the first step, like, how do we use the facility? What are the different options? This is a much broader look, and then there would be a more detailed, like, design if we picked a path.
So that's what was approved in year 5? The additional stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know John has a question over here to my right.
Well, I hesitate to comment again. Jude and Bob probably should weigh in if they would like to. We here in person shouldn't monopolize the discussion. Anyway, I did have a question for Peggy. I recall a few weeks or perhaps a month ago that you made a comment in one of the meetings discussing this, that in words to this fact, I can't quote you exactly, but if we had a vacant lot there, we'd be having a different discussion. And I'd just like to have a little thought experiment tonight. If it were a vacant
That's
lot.
not on the agenda. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
If it were a vacant lot, what would you propose that the town do with it?
I mean, that is the bigger discussion. That's the town conversation. I mean, it really is like, what would we do with the property? I don't have any preconceived ideas right now. I think my point was more, if you were to build this from scratch, you would design a different building, right? But the purpose of so it was more related to the building there versus building something from scratch. I think, I don't know exactly when I said this, but, if you're going to design this building, it would just be done differently. But one of the main goals of this project is preserving a historic building, right? And so you're kind of living with what you have. That's why it's so expensive. You might, for 24 million, you could probably build a community center. It wouldn't be as big. It'd be more focused. You might have different amenities that would suit specific purposes more. We're trying to transform something into a community center that was a school. So, but in terms of the vacant lot idea, that's part of the conversation I think that, the town would be having if this fails a referendum. Cause I don't know other ways to use that building. I mean, even housing was looked at, back in 2018, 2019, under the previous administration. No one wants that building. They are only interested in doing a development there if they can get all the green space around it too, all the ball fields, and that's what created all the controversy. So, um, so, and I know people have ideas about, I've heard about a new Faneuil Hall or, commercial space or whatever. All of those are going to require new roof, new plumbing, new HVAC. They're all going to require all that core infrastructure. So I guess that, I don't know if that answers your question. I apologize. I don't remember the context of my statement. So.
Just as I recall it as best I could, that you said something to the effect that if it was a empty lot, we'd be having a different discussion. But you answered it very well, and I appreciate your input on that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm a little offended no one asked me what I wanted. I wanted to put it like a big steel shell up in a hockey rink inside.
Yeah.
You donate $24 million.
Not the steel shell.
I'll make a motion.
There you go.
I will say one more.
Go ahead, Judy. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, at the beginning of this meeting, I did express my thoughts on this. I don't like repeating myself, so I'm not going to do that. But what I will say, one thing I've heard that I'd want to address is I do think that by voting against this, we are taking it away from the voters. They voted to spend out of their pockets 15.9 million. And I think we need to go back to them to get their thoughts and what they want, if they want us to use this additional grant money to make that happen. And I think by voting no, my opinion is that we would be taking it away from the people.
Awesome.
Bob, you want to say anything? I know you said what you said.
I'd like to say that I hope that we can motion this to a vote at this time.
That's it, Bob. I like that. The word would be move the motion. There it is. Any other discussion? All right, we're gonna start with you, Bob. We have a motion to approve the resolution recommending supplemental appropriation of $8,100,000 to go to a referendum. That motion was made and seconded, so a vote of yes will be to approve this resolution, a vote of no will be to deny it. I'm gonna do a roll call vote, and Bob, you're first. I'm gonna start with you, left to right.
I vote yes in favor.
Bob is a yes. John?
I am a no.
Jude?
Yes, in favor.
Katie?
Yes, indeed.
John?
No.
Matt?
No.
I will vote yes. 4-3, that motion does carry. Anybody from the public would like to comment? Is there anybody from?
No hands raised at this time.
Second time? Third time, public information session is closed.
Oh, wait, someone raised their hand.
All right, thanks, Gene.
Go ahead, Jim.
Hi, it's Jim Schmaltz with from Jonathan's Landing. I really have a concern that when it's going over the 24 million, there hasn't been, what the plan is going to be. I know there was in the budget, the original bids, there was 1.2 million in theater lighting and sound that wasn't included in the numbers. There was insulation concerns, and then just full-blown abatement issues. So the fact that when you get into it and you start spending money, there's no end, right? So when you hit 24 million, if you have a building that's basically a shell, what is the town going to do? It's got to fund more money into it. So it's not a $24 million project. It's an open check to continue if this gets approved, because at that point you're into it and there's no stopping. So that's going to affect, the school budgets. It's going to affect the surf club, which is really where the money should be going. So it's, I was really disappointed that there was no contingency and there was no bids prior to the vote, to the referendum. That's another one that doesn't make any sense to me. So I appreciate you letting me speak. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jim. Thanks for your time. Anybody else in the public who'd like to speak? Looking at you, Gene.
No
Second
hands
time,
raised.
third time. Public information session closed. I'll get a motion to adjourn, please. Thank you,
Second.
Matt. Second, Katie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned at 6:07. We're gonna take a 1-minute break. That's it.